Welcome to week 3 of the BTFL season 3. The Titans/Oilers would play the Jacksonville Jaguars on Thursday Night Football. To begin with, we would have a really bad injury. Derrick Henry would suffer an injury. They had just lost Eddie George a few weeks before, and he would be spelled by CJ2K, but this wouldn't stop the Titans/Oilers, as Warren Moon would throw 8 for 14, 247 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. 3 of them all would go to Haywood Jeffries. Fred Taylor would have a pretty big game here, as he would have 94 yards, but he would fumble at the 1-yard line. A really bad thing to do for the Jacksonville Jaguars, recovered by Chris Dishman in the end zone. But the Jaguars would get the ball back, as Trevor Lawrence, who didn't have a very good game, would give it to Keenan McCardell to tie the game up. The Jaguars would add a Mike Hollis field goal, and then in the second half, Haywood Jeffries would go off. Haywood Jeffries would have 4 total receptions for 149 yards. We've seen 2 of his touchdowns already, and then we'll see the final one right here. Warren Moon over the middle, Haywood Jeffries, and he sees daylight. The Tennessee/Houston Titans and Oilers would get their first win of the season after this 21-10 victory over the Jaguars. Super Bowl VI rematch between the Dolphins and the Cowboys. The Cowboys absolutely demolished the Miami Dolphins in this game. This was a 47-yard pass to Tony Dorsett to set up a Tony Dorsett rushing touchdown over the middle. CeeDee Lamb would add more as well, as he was the leading receiver. 3 receptions for 54 yards, including this touchdown, and it didn't go over well for Dan Marino. He would fumble a bunch of times. This was a recovery by Bob Lilly. The Dallas Cowboys would win this game 28-7. They're 3-0, and the Miami Dolphins are lowly 0-3. Another big Super Bowl rematch, Broncos and Packers. Peyton Manning came back from his 1-week hiatus, and he gets off perfectly, throwing it deep to Demaryius Thomas, who had 2 receptions for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers would match, throwing it down the left side and throwing it to James Lofton, and then would throw it to Davante Adams after they got a touchdown, but Davante Adams would fumble, and the ball's recovered by Steve Atwater, but the Packers would get the ball back. After a field goal by Jason Elam, Sterling Sharp would catch this big touchdown, as he had 2 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers would then start to trade blows. This one, the second touchdown to Demaryius Thomas, Peyton Manning would celebrate, and then Aaron Rodgers would find a receiver down the left side. It's James Lofton, and James Lofton would go all the way, 2 receptions, 123 yards and a touchdown. Packers win 21-20. They're 2-1. Broncos are 1-2. Last 2 weeks, the Bengals have been one of the worst teams in the AFC. Maybe bringing Ickey Woods back will give them that Ickey shuffle. But beginning of the game, Andre Reed catches this reception. He had 2 for 46 yards and a touchdown. Next drive for the Bills, climbing the ladder, James Lofton. This is his only reception for 51 yards and a touchdown. Later on, play action, more done by Jim Kelly. He would throw a 51-yard pass to Thurman Thomas. He would get on the board as well. Bengals eventually would add a touchdown via Boomer Esiason, but Eric Moulds would get one too, 15 yards and a touchdown. The Buffalo Bills win 28-14. They're 2-1. Bengals lowly 0-3. Both teams won last week. Eagles and Lions coming in 1-1. LaShawn McCoy had a huge coming out game, but you got to give Norm Van Brocklin and T.O. their props on this drive, getting the ball inside Lions territory, and then LaShawn McCoy, one of his 4 touchdowns. He goes whoop, bobs and weaves around defenders. LaShawn McCoy with 8 rushes, 121 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Matthew Stafford didn't have very much luck in this game, as he was intercepted by Brian Dawkins. 1 of 3 turnovers for Matthew Stafford in this game. And the final one, down 21-0. Try to get something going. He would get intercepted by the guy who should be in the Hall of Fame, Eric Allen. and then LaShawn McCoy would get his final of 4 touchdowns. Eagles win 35-7. They're 2-1. Lions are 1-2. The Curtis Martin versus Curtis Martin game, Jets and Patriots. Jets have just had a really unlucky experience this season, losing 2 close games. At the very beginning, the kickoff to Jim Nantz, he would go around defenders, getting it to close to the 18-yard line. He would fumble. Jamal Adams has been Johnny on the spot recently. He's had a really good season, and this would end with Joe Namath giving it to the Jets' Curtis Martin with his 1 reception for 16 yards and a touchdown. However, Joe Namath would fumble on the next drive, recover by Richard Seymour, and put the Patriots on the board. Jets get the ball back. Joe Namath, finding himself in Patriots territory, would find Al Toon deep. His 1 reception for 35 yards and a touchdown would be big. Curtis Martin of the Patriots would not have very much luck early. He would fumble. Ball's recovered by Revis Island, getting it to the 1-yard line, and they would pound the ball in for a touchdown. Tom Brady, not trusting Curtis Martin, finding himself in Jets territory, would find Rob Gronkowski, 2 receptions, 59 yards, and a touchdown for the future Hall of Fame tight end. Curtis Martin of the Jets would fumble this time, and that would lead to a field goal by Adam Vinatieri. Next drive for the Jets, Joe Namath would find Wayne Krebet wide open, getting it inside of Patriots territory. That would lead to a Leahy field goal. Next drive for the Patriots, Randy Moss would be found deep by Brady, and Curtis Martin would find his way inch closer to the end zone. Game is all tied up. Next drive for the Jets, Curtis Martin of the Jets would bob and weave around defenders, finding himself in the end zone. The Jets would find themselves up 7 points. Then Tom Brady would play action roll out. Less than 4 minutes to go in the game. Find Randy Moss, the phenom receiver, in the end zone. 2 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown of his own. Less than 2 minutes, Joe Namath makes a big mistake, throwing an interception to Mike Haynes. This would set up Tom Brady with the walk-off touchdown pass to Stanley Morgan, coming back from injury. He had 2 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown. The Patriots win 38-31, and the Jets lose yet another super close game. And this was our game of the week, the Falcons and the Colts. The Colts get off to a big lead. Peyton Manning giving it over to stately Wayne Manor inside the 10-yard line, and then would finish this drive off to Dallas Clark. This was his first touchdown reception of the season, and more would be piled on from Peyton Manning. Throwing the ball to Raymond Berry, who has had a great season of his own. 8 receptions, 187 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Peyton Manning shows off the wheels. He's done this a few times in his career. Colts take a 14-0 lead. But here is where Michael Vick starts to show up. Throwing the ball into the end zone to Julio Jones. He had 2 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown. Gerald Riggs has usually been good this season, but he puts the ball on the ground. It's a fumble. Ball's recovered by the Colts in the end zone. That's a touchback. But then Marshall Falk gives the ball right back to the Falcons. Recovered by Tommy Nobis. It's a fumble. And then Michael Vick starts to pour it on again, throwing the ball over the middle to Tony Gonzalez, the Hall of Famer. That was his lone reception for 32 yards and a touchdown. And then Gerald Riggs finishes this one off, making up for his fumble. The Atlanta Falcons win this game 21-14, 21 consecutive points. Both teams are 2-1. The Minnesota Vikings have been the worst team in the NFC this season, and Kirk Cousins is one of the reasons why. Ever since he took over for Fran Tarkenton, who got injured, he's been throwing nothing but interceptions. 6 on the season. That was Willie Brown's 2nd interception of the game. And this interception to do the dagger. Charles Woodson goes 43 yards after this interception for a touchdown. The Raiders get their first win of the season, winning 37-0. And the Minnesota Vikings are still on the schneid. Best matchup for the week, the Ravens and the Chiefs. Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson really didn't do much in this game, and Tyreek Hill catches his first touchdown of the season from Patrick Mahomes. He was Patrick Mahomes' favorite receiver. Patrick Mahomes was the best quarterback in this game. He would throw 179 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. And Christian Okoye would go off. 7 receptions, 12 yards, 2 touchdowns for the Nigerian Nightmare. Lamar Jackson would attempt to get points on the board as he would throw this deep pass to Steve Smith Sr. And the first blocked field goal of the season is recovered by Buck Buchanan. Up by 14 points for the Chiefs. They kick a field goal by Harrison Butker. Eventually, the Ravens would get it going. Steve Smith Sr., he would have 3 receptions, 181 yards, and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes would get intercepted by Dwayne Starks, but Lamar Jackson would give the ball right back down 10. Recovered by Buck Buchanan, his second recovery of the game. Chiefs would eventually win 27-7. They're 2-1. Ravens are 1-2. Surprise perfect record here. The Arizona Cardinals going up against the BTFL Season 1 runner-up, the Carolina Panthers. David Johnson has set himself up for a pretty good season. 11 rushes for 88 yards and a touchdown. But first, Jackie Smith would catch his only pass for 13 yards and a touchdown. That is Kurt Warner's first. But Cam Newton helped the Panthers get a field goal, and Steve Smith Sr. of the Carolina Panthers, he went off in this game. 4 receptions for 122 yards, and Christian McCaffrey finishes off the drive. He had 9 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown of his own. But David Johnson had his big game receiving with 3 receptions for 149 yards, including the last 2 receptions, this one included. And the drive ends with Kurt Warner up by 1 point, giving it to Larry Fitzgerald, the old reliable receiver, the future Hall of Famer. But the Carolina Panthers trying to get back into this game, last chance, giving the ball to Steve Smith Sr., but Christian McCaffrey, ill-advised red zone fumble. The Arizona Cardinals would win this game with a final score of 21-13. They are 3-0. The Carolina Panthers are the opposite, 0-3. This game was a dogfight till the end, a Brady versus Giants matchup. Tom Brady of the Buccaneers leads the league in touchdown passes. This is another one to Keyshawn Johnson, and Saquon Barkley would tie the game up for the Giants. Buccaneers get the ball again, and Brady throws again to Keyshawn Johnson, who has a lot of touchdown passes this season. Warwick Dunn, flea flicker to Keyshawn Johnson, but it's intercepted by Emlyn Tunnel. Ball's fumbled, recovered by Justin Tuck, so Giants take over. Saquon Barkley on the same drive, he gets injured. I know Giants fans might be very happy about that. He's not replaced by Tiki Barber, not replaced by Joe Morris. He's replaced by Victor Cruz doing the salsa dance in the end zone, tie game. But Brady throws it to the right side to Mike Evans for his first touchdown of the game. And then Eli Manning follows this up with an Odell Beckham Jr. touchdown reception. And the game is tied like I originally said. Less than 2 minutes, flea flicker, Brady, Evans, it's too easy. And he gets his second touchdown of the game. Tom Brady with 4 total touchdowns in this one, and the Buccaneers win 28-21. Buccaneers are 2-1. Giants are 1-2. The dynasty of the 70s versus the dynasty of the 80s. At the end of the first quarter, Terry Bradshaw would hook up with Hines Ward. This was Hines Ward's first touchdown of the entire season. But next drive, Joe Montana would find one of his great receivers in T.O. to around the 24-yard line, and that would be a field goal make. Terry Bradshaw on the next drive, he would throw an interception to Merton Hanks, and this would lead to a Jerry Rice touchdown reception, tough catch in the back of the end zone. Jerry Rice has his second touchdown of the season. This one was also intended for Jerry Rice, but it'd be intercepted by Rod Woodson, and this would lead to a Jerome Bettis. He doesn't have the head of lettuce, he's the bus. Steelers have a 4-point lead. Joe Green sacks Joe Montana. He'd be replaced by Steve Young, so he's a Hall of Fame quarterback too, so he's in good company, and he tries to get the ball down the field. First to Vernon Davis to the 24. And then on 4th down, Steve Young finds Tom Rathman, unable to get to the first down marker. Steelers win 14-10. Both teams are 2-1. Game between two 0-2 teams, the Texans and the San Diego/LA Chargers. Fouts is still starting over Phillip Rivers, who is injured, but this wouldn't stop Keenan Allen for having a pretty good game. 3 receptions for 87 yards, including this big touchdown to put the Chargers up by 6 points. 7 points with that extra point. Deshaun Watson has had a really bad season up till now, but he actually had a really good game. He threw 11 for 14 passing, 212 yards, and a touchdown, including a rushing touchdown, which was actually really good. Second drive, Andre the Giant Johnson. He's the only Hall of Famer in the history of the Houston Texans. Picks up the touchdown. It's a big lead here for the Texans. But LT, the new LT, the young LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, had 17 rushes for 122 yards in this game, but nobody could stop Charlie Joyner on this play. 4 receptions for 61 yards and a touchdown. Under 4 minutes, LaDainian Tomlinson helps the Chargers get in good field position, and Nate Kading with the game-winning field goal. It's up, and it is good. Doinks off the uprights. The Chargers get their first win of the season. They're 1-2. The Texans had a good game, but are still on the schneid. And now to round out week 3 of the highlights, Saints and Seahawks. Alvin Kamara comes back from injury. Rick Tuden, he would punt this ball to Joe Horn, and Joe Horn will go ahead and collect it at around the 21-yard line. He get tackled. It's a fumble recovered by Tuten, and he's in the end zone. He's doing the punter dance in the end zone. Saints, however, they need to get back into this one as Drew Brees throws it down the left side to Michael Thomas. He had 2 touchdowns in this game, but he was upstaged by Sean Alexander. 95 total rushing yards in this game, including that one. And then Russell Wilson would go off himself. He had 2 passing touchdowns in this game, including that one to Doug Baldwin. And then play action, roll out, bootleg, 71-yard pass to Steve Largent. And Russell Wilson and the Seahawks win this game 31-17. The Seahawks are 3-0. The Saints are 2-1.